No? Yes? Okay. I'm Ray from Malta. These guys will get the presentation up. Basically, thank you very much, Jürgen, for inviting us over to this fantastic event. I mean, what we've heard today and yesterday, I mean, especially this afternoon, was fantastic eye-opener. I mean, we don't know what's coming up in the next couple of years. And hopefully, clicker. Just like this? All forward? Okay. Okay. So basically, I mean, Malta is the smallest country in the EU. I don't know if anyone of you guys have actually been to the island. We are just 100 kilometers south of Sicily. We're made of 3 islands, Malta, Gozo, and Comino. Basically, some small facts about Malta. We are just 316 square kilometers. We have a population of 500,000, believe it or not, with 400,000 cars. We have a very high population density, and our main industries are tourism, finance, and manufacture. A bit of our geography. The island is mainly low-lying. It's rock. Our highest point is only 253 meters above sea level. And basically, our only natural resources are limestone, salt, and solar energy. The land use is mainly constructed area. Our agricultural area is only 27%. We have hardly any forests left on the island, just 5%, and we have no natural water resources in the area except what we have as rainfall. This is a typical Maltese landscape. We have the cliffs on the west side and terraced fields all over the island. We have most of the north of the island is mainly garine, which in summer is covered by wild thyme. Our climate, as you would expect, is the Mediterranean climate, very hot. This summer we had record temperatures of close to 41 degrees in the shade. We have hardly any rainfall. The average rainfall is typically 39 inches. This year we only had 13 inches. I mean, our rain stopped in January, so we had a good 9 months without a single drop of water except what we had stored. I mean, it was very hard. So these are the main products that we produce. You would possibly be familiar with our famous Maltese potatoes. And we have strawberries, olives, and tomatoes. Okay, so throughout the ages, Malta was known for its quality of honey. The Greeks called the island Melita, which came from the word mel, which in Greek means honey. So basically, Malta and the Romans introduced the land as the island of honey, and this was carried on by the Arabs who came on after the Romans left. So we have a very long history in Malta. One of the first, not really documented history, is the Phoenicians, who were there for close to 1,400 years. They were very well known as traders, and they originated from the Syria area, and they were very good seafaring people. And we have actually found shipwrecks around the island of Gozo, where the pots over there were actually full of honey and wine originating from the islands themselves. So it shows that the islands were actually actively involved in honey trading. Then we have the Romans. This is a very famous apiary up in the north of the island. The Romans knew that obviously we produce very good honey, and they were already famous for the honey production in Sicily. So they knew the connection between Malta and Sicily was the same. And in fact, there is a very famous story by Cicero, who reported the governor of Sicily to the emperor that he was stealing 400 jars of thyme honey, which in those days was worth a fortune. The Arabs came after the Romans. Obviously, they built on what already the Romans had, and they introduced new crops to the island, including cotton, almonds, figs, and citrus. The Arabs also documented the production of honey on the islands, and they saw that it was well known and it was an industry to invest in. Obviously, you probably know about the Knights of St. John, who came to Malta in 1530. The Knights were hospitaliers. That means they took care of the wounded people from the Crusades. They used honeys for the treatment of wounds on the people, and because they were a religious order as well, they also used it for candles and their religious ceremonies. These are the typical flowers we have in Malta. We have 3 harvests: spring, summer, and autumn. The summer being the most famous from wild thyme. How did Malta develop its own subspecies? As you probably know, Malta, I'll show you this little film. It speaks for itself. One second. Okay, sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Basically, we had a little 1-minute movie of Africa and Europe moving towards each other. What happened when the Straits of Gibraltar were closed during the salinity crisis, where the Mediterranean dried up over a period of a few million years. And it shows then when the Straits of Gibraltar opened again, there was the flooding of the Mediterranean, and the Mediterranean islands of Malta and Sicily formed, and they got isolated from the mainlands. This slide shows how the origin of the bees, it seems, and even we confirmed it even today through Dr. Sam's lectures, that the bees moved from the east towards the west, down into Africa, and then going, spreading all over Europe through different parts. So there is actual proof that the mainland Malta was connected to the mainland of Europe and Africa. Obviously, there are fossil remains of elephants and hippopotamus, which clearly show that there was a land connection. Obviously, these fossils have survived. And it's the same thing, probably the bees were there as well. Obviously, there are no fossilized bees, unfortunately, but we know from various studies that you're going to see now that the bees actually got isolated in Malta and moved and adjusted to the conditions. In the last 40 years, as you guys all know, we've had, unfortunately, the arrival of Varroa in the late 80s, where we lost about 80 to 90% of our beehives. Traditionally, we kept hives in clay pots, where you have the bees entering through a restricted entrance, and you work from the back. Very similar to what Mr. Oliva showed us yesterday, the Sicilian hive, the ferula. Basically, after the arrival of Varroa, measures had to be taken to import new stock, and people moved to using the modern hives. So, the introduction of non-native species, which came from New Zealand, which at that time did not have any varroa, exposed the remaining stocks to hybridization. This, we lost valuable genetic material, which was clearly a threat to the Maltese species. So, in the mid-90s, we had Professor Frederick Ruttneri, who is German, who we probably know, who at that time was investigating various islands in the Mediterranean, mainly as well Vulcano of Sicily, where he was seeing how the bees, which were isolated for several thousands of years, were getting their own morphologies and developing their own traits. He, in fact, discovered that the Maltese bee had its own unique traits, and it was decided that, as an honor, his name was carried onto the Maltese bee. He is considered in the Mediterranean region to be quite famous because he also named the bees in Crete, the Adami. He has made a lot of work in Sicily on the bees there, so it was quite an honor for him. So this is another way how it was taught by Ruttneri and proposed by him, how the bees moved into Northern Europe via the Spain route. There is a lot of work in his very famous book, and today his theories are being put to the test with various DNA methods. This is a simple, taken out of his technical paper, showing the various traits between different species of bees. So you have the Ligustica, the Cicalia, the Intermissa, and the Ruttneri. The Ruttneri, which is on the top left, is very different from the Sicilian and Tunisian bees. And in fact, if you had to do cluster analysis, you would see that the Ruttneri bee stands out, especially from all the other main species, which are only 100 kilometers away. The main thing when you see the Ruttneri bee is that its wings are shorter and narrower, and it has a wider abdomen. And it has the widest abdomen of all the Apis mellifera species. And it has long hair on its body. Its legs are shorter, and it seems to have adapted well to the Maltese flora. These are some of the indices that you can see that the bees are totally different. So, obviously today you have to go to DNA analysis. This confirms K-cluster analysis that was carried out in the late 90s. And it shows the difference that the Maltese bee has to the Sicilian bee. The Maltese bee has adapted well to the Maltese climate. We are lucky that our queen is already laying late January, early February. So the drones are present already, and it gives us time to have a long season from what little rain we can get. There is brood in the colony all the year round. It has very good sensitive hygiene traits, and it has an ability to defend itself well from hornets and wasps, which are becoming a major problem down in the south of the Mediterranean. Unfortunately, the Maltese bee has a tendency of swarming and producing a lot of queen cells, so if you are not careful, you end up with no bees at all in your hives. And unfortunately, it is very aggressive. This is because it has African traits in its genes. So we have, as all you guys know, the same problems that are affecting bees. So you have reduced foraging areas, pollution and climate change, agricultural chemicals, the gene pool is always being diluted, and we have the arrival of pathogens and exotic pests, which are always putting extra pressure on the bees. Okay, so, I mean, not all is lost. I mean, the Maltese bee, over the last 30 years or so, has managed to make a comeback. So, I mean, there is an effort by local beekeepers, as myself, to be able to push the Maltese bee forward. And this is, in fact, even recognized by Slow Food Foundation, which has the Maltese bee, the Ruttneri, part of the Arc of Taste. I thank you. Oh, sorry. Okay, that's me. That's a UK hive, definitely not Malta. Buckfast bees. So I thank you for listening to me. Hope you have the rest of a good conference, and you enjoy the concert later tonight. Thank you.
This was really short. Yeah. Anyway, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
What's the harvest of this year?
This year wasn't that bad. I mean, we make 3 harvests. Each colony gives us 15 to 20 kilos per harvest. So you're looking between 50 to 60 kilos per colony per year.
This year?
This year, we were more on the 15 kilo side.
15?
15, 1-5.
Because it was too dry.
It was too dry. I mean, we didn't have any rain. We had a third of the rainfall of a whole average year, which was pretty low. This couple of months, we've had quite a bit of rain, but we are seeing the effects of extreme weather conditions here in Malta, which is problematic. I mean, Sicily has the same thing. They had tornadoes, fires, heavy rainfall, high winds. I mean, this affects the bees and agriculture as a whole. So if the bees can't operate, the agriculture suffers, the production of crops is lost. I mean, it's a vicious circle which we lose everything.
When I was sitting in the membership meeting, ich spreche auf Deutsch, ja?
Okay, yes.
Take. No, then I speak English,
Okay,
and he
sorry.
will translate in German. When I was sitting in the membership meeting in Montreal, immediately they show that Malta became a full member of Epimondia.
Yes.
In this second, I realized that Malta will also apply for Epimondia someday.
That would be the day. I mean, we have, as far as I know, 2 full members in Epimondia, which is the government and the local beekeeping association. I mean, it's an improvement. We have some 200 beekeepers in Malta. Altogether, there are just over 2,000 hives. So, I mean, Malta is small, but the density of hives is one of the highest in the whole of Europe per square kilometer. So there is a lot of interest. But obviously, organizing something like Epimondia is no joke and quite a challenge. I mean, obviously, we need government assistance to do something like that and your expertise.
But if Germany and Malta applies for the same call, who will win?
Well, we won the war in 1944. So,
thank you. Great.
thanks.
Great.
Cheers.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Great.
Well done. Awesome.